Hey guys, my name's Ryan Burke and I'm with Rode Microphones based in Sydney, Australia. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through all of the features of the RØDECaster Pro, which is the world's first fully integrated podcasting production studio. Now, to get straight into the features, basically the RØDECaster Pro enables you to record a podcast that sounds really rich and high quality, just like you can hear right now through the Rode Pod mic, which is plugged directly into channel 1 of the RØDECaster Pro that we're using for this video. Now, to get started recording a podcast, it's as easy as turning on the unit, inserting a micro SD card, turning up your microphone and just hitting the green record button. I'm already recording a podcast now. It's that simple. But what I want to do in this video is take you through all of the features so that you get a really good idea of how this can simplify your workflow for podcast production, for voiceover recording, even for recording interviews. Now, first of all, when you turn on the RØDECaster Pro and you turn up your fader, you can press on the channel button directly above the fader that you're actually controlling. And it brings up a whole bunch of options here so that you can really easily set up the sound to perfectly match your voice. Now, first of all, you tap on the microphone button and you select your microphone type. In this case, I've selected the Rode Pod mic because that's what we're using for this particular setup. But you can also choose a bunch of other Rode microphone presets or just a general condenser or dynamic microphone preset. Now, essentially what that does is it sets a preamp level that makes a lot of sense for the type of microphone you're using. It also sets phantom power on or off. If you don't know what those things are, you don't have to worry about them at all because the RØDECaster Pro does it all for you. But what it also does is controls the sound of some really nice signal processing to give the audio this really nice rich tone. Now, the next step is that you tap on the voice button and you select your voice type from the tone of voice and the strength of your voice. So I'll go to tone here and you just select whether you have a deep voice, a medium voice, or a high voice. I would say that I have a medium voice, so I'm going to leave it on that setting for the medium voice tone. Next, I select the strength of my voice, and by default it's set to medium, but I would say that I talk with a pretty strong tone of voice into the microphone, so I'm going to select strong. Now, essentially what that has done is it has set up a bunch of different settings in the advanced processing menu here. So what the RØDECaster Pro integrates, which makes it so incredible for podcasting production, is a compressor, high-pass filter, de-esser, noise gate, ducking so that you can always turn down all of the other channels for the host when they're speaking on channel 1. And it also integrates the incredible Aphex Aural Exciter and Big Bottom processing, which you can hear that I've just turned on the Aphex Aural Exciter, and it gives you that really nice rich tone. Now, to give you an idea of what the RØDECaster Pro does that other platforms cannot do, like recording directly into a normal flash recorder, I'm going to turn off the processing. Now, this is a really high quality microphone, the Rode Pod mic. It's a great sounding mic, but you can hear what the RØDECaster Pro does to the signal to automatically mix that audio and make it sound really nice for you. So I'm going to turn that processing back on and immediately you can hear that incredible difference. It's so easy. You just select your voice type and your voice strength and everything else is set up for you. Now, what the compressor does is it constantly controls the dynamics of the sound that's going into the microphone. You've got a noise gate so that every time the noise level, every time your voice stops speaking, all of the noise in the room is actually cut out completely. So if I stop speaking, you'll hear that it's complete silence. And that's the really cool thing with the RØDECaster Pro, because even if you're in a noisy environment, perhaps even doing a podcast from a bar or at a live event, the RØDECaster Pro is going to sound really nice and rich and clean the entire time. Now, onwards to the next channels. So we've got 4 channels here of microphone inputs, which you can see on the back, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're balanced XLRs, and they actually have really, really nice high quality preamps, as you can hear. Next to that, we have a USB channel, and what that enables you to do is actually play audio files from your computer. For instance, if you have a podcast about music, you could play music from your computer. And basically you connect it via USB-C and it sees the RØDECaster Pro as an audio interface. Now, the really cool thing is that you can, of course, record your podcast via USB as well. And you can either choose to record it in stereo, fully mixed, just like you hear now, or you can even record it in multi-channel mode. So I can go into the settings for the RØDECaster Pro, hardware, advanced, and then I can see right here that I've got the USB channel multi-track recording option. I'll tap on that and say okay, and now that is actually outputting a multi-channel signal. Now right here, you've got the option on the USB channel to enable a mix minus. And basically that is how you can get echo-free Skype calls where the person calling you can hear every single sound source on the entire podcast without hearing an echo of their own voice, which if you've ever had an echo of your own voice playing back in a call, it makes it almost impossible to speak. And that's called a mix minus because you're getting a mix of the entire platform minus your own channel. That's something that's usually quite difficult to do with any other platform, like using a standard audio interface or even a digital mixer, but the RØDECaster Pro does it on 3 separate channels, which brings me to the next 2 channels. So right next to that USB channel, you have the mobile device connectivity channel. Now what this enables you to do is actually plug into the 3.5mm jack on the back of the RØDECaster Pro. You can plug in a mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet so that you can play audio from your device into the RØDECaster Pro, but you also get a mix of the entire RØDECaster Pro podcast back into that device. So again, you can make echo-free phone calls, whether it's directly using a normal GSM phone call or using Skype or FaceTime or any of those other platforms like WhatsApp. Next to that, we have the really cool wireless option with Bluetooth. So what I'm going to do for this one is actually show you how easy it is to set up a phone connected to the RØDECaster Pro to play back some music or make a phone call via Bluetooth. So I've got an iPhone 10 here, and I'm going to press the Bluetooth button really quickly. And what will happen is up on the screen is going to pop a message saying, would you like to pair a smartphone, tablet, or computer? I'll say yes. Then I'm going to quickly go into the settings on my iPhone here and go to the Bluetooth menu. And straight away, up on the screen, you'll see the RØDECaster Pro pop. So I'm going to say yes to connecting to the RØDECaster Pro. And now I'm connected. So to give you a little bit of a demo of how easy it is to bring music into your podcast, I've got a really cool performance by Stephen Asamoah right here in this studio at Gear4music, where he's playing this amazing Tama drum kit. So I'm going to hit play on that video, and then just like that, you've got some awesome music coming directly into your podcast. Now, if this was any other sound source, like a phone call, you could call somebody into the podcast. They can hear all of the music, all of the different things, various guests, and they can also, engage with the podcast without having an echo of their own voice. Now, you might be wondering what all of these colorful pads are to the side of the unit. And what makes this really cool is that you can load sounds directly onto the RØDECaster Pro. So to give you an example, if I had a podcast where I wanted to put some intro or outro music, I can simply fire off the sounds on one of these pads to be able to do that every single time I have a podcast, just like this. Welcome to the podcast about the RØDECaster Pro. My name's Ryan Burke, and this is a great example of an intro track that I can then fade out, and then I can press the button again to stop it from playing back. Now, to load those sounds on, you use the free RØDECaster Pro software that's available for Mac or PC, and you simply drag and drop sounds directly onto those sound pads. And some of the ideas of things that you can do with these sound pads is to use them to play back sound effects, maybe even pre-recorded interviews. And the really cool thing is that it comes with a whole bunch of different sounds preloaded, just like this really cool harp sound. Now, one of the other cool features is that if you wanted to be able to record music straight from your phone onto one of these pads, or even record your voice to one of these pads, it's really easy to do even on board. You go into the settings menu, then sounds, and then I'm going to tap on this pad right here, sound pad 7, and record my own voice just like this. RØDECaster Pro. And now I can turn up that sound, RØDECaster Pro, and I can play it back just like that. So it's a really, really handy way to be able to get your audio running straight into the RØDECaster Pro to have really professional sound. Now, that's all of the channel features. Up the top here, you can see that you have a dedicated headphone amp for every single person on the podcast so that everyone can have their own level mixed perfectly. Now, the RØDECaster Pro is actually a really popular thing to put into schools and educational institutions. So to make sure that everyone can use headphones without having to worry about perhaps maybe school children damaging their hearing by turning up something too loud, we've actually integrated a really cool feature into the hardware settings where you go to hardware, headphones, and there is a built-in headphone limiter so that you can limit the maximum volume that will come out of those headphones, and you can really protect the hearing of those people that are using the RØDECaster Pro. Now to the side of that, we also have, next to the headphone amp, a little speaker output here that you can see. And that's what we're actually using right now to record the output of this RØDECaster Pro so that I could demo the recording at the same time as talking into the RØDECaster Pro here without having to start and stop the recording. Now what that does is it actually outputs the full mix of the RØDECaster Pro so that you can actually use it at live events as well. So not only can you record directly to the internal micro SD, at the same time you can record or stream over USB, and then you can also record or even output to speakers in whatever event you're at directly via the 6.5mm balanced outputs on the back. Now, if I wanted to record my podcast right now, I can hit the record button and you can see that it starts a timer, but it also gives me the ability to add markers. So I can just tap on the add marker button, perhaps if there was a mistake from one of my guests on the podcast, or if I just wanted to put some markers there for some different, times for different segments on the podcast. Now, there's one other feature that I want to talk about with the RØDECaster Pro, and that is this set of buttons down here at the bottom, which enables you to control the audio of the podcast. Now, of course, the obvious one here is the mute buttons, where I can actually mute any channel by pressing the red button, and that will take that out of the main sound mix. The nice thing about the mutes, though, is that if you're recording multi-channel to either the micro SD card or over USB, the multi-channel is not affected by the faders or the mutes, so that you can always repair any mistakes that you might have made by having a fader too low or a channel accidentally muted when somebody says something funny or something like that. But next to those, you also see these green buttons, which are actually a solo that only works for the headphone 1 operator. Now, on the unit, you can actually plug headphones in directly on the back with 6.5mm jacks, but for the actual operator on headphone 1, there's also a 3.5mm jack directly on the front of the unit for convenient plugging in for the person sitting in front of the unit. And basically, they have access to these solo buttons so that if you can hear something maybe unusual happening, maybe somebody with bad mic technique or rustling from their clothing, you can individually go through and press the solo buttons without affecting the headphone mix of anybody else listening to the podcast. So your other guests can go ahead and talk to one another while you go through and find any issues, or perhaps you want to check the level of your music before you actually bring it into your podcast. You can mute the channel, turn it up, and then press the little ear button here to solo that. And then as the operator of the podcast, you can get the music to the perfect balance and then unmute it, and it goes straight into your podcast. Now, while the RØDECaster Pro makes it very easy and intuitive to record a great sounding podcast, if you want to be able to get an entire package so that you can start podcasting straight away, Gear4music puts together some really awesome bundles with the RØDECaster Pro that integrates the microphones, headphones, cables, stands, everything you need to get started. So check out the Gear4music website and start thinking about ideas for your podcast.